On the previous episode of Ménage À Mind,
Well, was it full-on penetration?
Richard Greer actually showed me how to treat women.
Even though she was a prostitute, right? She was being treated positively.
How's your mental health?
my mental health is good. Thank you for asking. How's your mental health?
My mental health is getting better. I'm looking forward to 2023. I feel like that will be the completion of this year of depression and changes and everything, and I can welcome in new energy as the new year starts.
It seems like you've already welcomed in new energy, dear.
I've welcomed in a new lifestyle. I've been open to welcoming new energy, and I feel like as the new year comes, I can solidify that energy as my own and this lifestyle as my own.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you waiting for the new year to solidify the new energy, or you just feel like the new year will set the precedent for new year, new you?
Yeah. So it's sort of like a new year, new me, or like a old year is complete type of
Oh,
thing.
that shit is done.
Yeah, that shit
Okay,
is done.
got it.
I'm using, funny enough, usually I'm not like a New Year resolution type person. I just refresh whenever I want, but I feel like it's a symbol of completion and a restart. And that's where I am.
I understand that.
And I'm also happy to start the new year with you.
Same.
Yes. Would you like to do a chant?
Sure.
Yeah. What chant you got for us?
My chant, my go-to chant is the traditional Nam Myoho Renge Kyo.
Let's do it
You're
together.
supposed to do it 3 times slow
Okay.
first, and then you go fast.
Mm-hmm.
You ready?
Yeah.
Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. 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 Nam Myoho Renge Kyo.
That feels refreshing.
It does.
How does it make you feel when you chant that?
Grounded, centered, clear.
I feel a little lightheaded. Not like lightheaded, like
That too. Well, because you're doing it quickly with your breaths. I started chanting when I kept falling asleep meditating, and so meditation plus mantras help me focus on the meditation and not fall asleep.
That is good. That's good. I tend to be pretty focused when meditating because I'm accepting of like whatever images come as I like close my mind and like focus. And I realize people tend to look for certain things when they meditate, and for me, I just like let it flow through me, and whatever comes to me, I just accept.
I have a lot of thoughts, so yeah. If I let it flow, it's just gonna
It's gonna like craziness.
lots of shit is gonna come out.
So I wanted to talk to you today. Because we already talk a lot, and it's like might as well record our talkings.
Lots of talking.
But the theme the theme this month is really like who you were like before parenting.
Do you want to introduce me? Like nobody knows who you're talking to. Why I would know about parenting? Do you want to be like, oh, this is?
No, not on this podcast. We don't introduce that.
Oh, okay. It's a mystery. You guys just have to figure it out.
Well, let me get through my outline. All right,
Okay,
this is
sorry.
new. I know this is new. You've never been here before.
I
but-
have it. Let me
Yeah,
not. Let
okay.
me.
So I wanted to bring you here today to talk about who you were before being a parent, and also like the memories that you've probably like pushed to the side or have forgotten while you were being you before being a parent. If you could recall, you know what I'm talking about, like just your essence of Milah.
Who I was prior to having a child.
Yeah.
If I've suppressed those memories.
Mm-hmm. But before we get into that,
okay.
as you remind me, No, thank you for reminding me to introduce you as a guest. I want to introduce my girlfriend, my love, my wife, my everything,
Hi.
Mrs. Milah Mapp of the Good Moms Bad Choices. Say hello.
Hello, people.
So, I've been talking to my therapist, and the reason why I want to like probably get in, well, not probably, but get into who you were before parents, is because we have moments in trauma, and we tend to suppress and forget them until we get to a certain age where we can like, I feel we can be healing or be healed, or we no longer want to deal with those things. Like for me, it was around like age 16 where I felt like I can be my own person or be free, and I don't have to like be under the control of like my mom's household and the restrictions of that. And I know you've started a new life since having a child. Not necessarily starting, but like, you know, it's very new, the kind of life you have to live when you have a child. And I want to know if you remember how it was even before being a parent.
Well, dear, I've had many lives. I'm much older than you. I'm just kidding. I have had a lot of lives, though. I've done a lot of things. And I think that for me, a lot of my life, I feel like I suppressed subconsciously up until, like motherhood, or recently in the last like few years of motherhood. I don't think I was doing it consciously or intentionally. I think that I've recently like lifted a veil that made me realize that a lot of memories were like kind of suppressed and faded. And I think just understanding that is because I am more aware of, I'm just more self-aware. I think hopefully the goal is that as we get older, that we evolve in ways that we want to become better. And I think motherhood has made me more self-aware and more just wanting to be better. And with that process is just recognizing times in my life that were probably traumatic, and because of that, I suppressed. I think I didn't realize that until probably recently, but I've had a very filled life, and but prior to being a mother, I think it was just like visually I see like Tasmanian devil, just going fast, and having a lot of fun, but you know, like drinking, which I didn't realize was a form of suppression. You know, like I've drank a lot. I was in the hospitality industry in my 20s, and lots of blackout nights, lots of sex, lots of one night stands and shit. But I think that's a part of your 20s, but I think it's also just prior to being a parent, I was less intentional about how I was treating myself and what I was doing, just because it was more about the temporary pleasures and fun versus like the long-term fulfillment.
What is it about, I guess, after having a child that made you like a bit more self-aware? Because for me, I never really think about like my past too much because it was like so traumatic. But now that I'm in therapy and I'm like recanting like all these memories and stuff like that, and I'm like really getting into like my inner child, I'm really starting to, before it would be more so I would only remember like these past memories if they were like traumatic, or the good ones will also be close to like a traumatic experience. But now that I'm actually able to like live my life in an adulthood in the ways that I've wanted when I was a kid, I'm able to like be aware and like remember these memories. And I want to know like, what is it that helped you like to recant as a mother?
I think there are a couple of things. I think that, like I said, just evolving. I think that having a child, made me more aware of situations that I was putting myself in. After you have a child, you're going to be aware of those situations, how they're affecting you and how they're affecting your child. Versus when it's just you might like sit in those situations longer because you're less aware. But when there's another person that you're protecting, you are going to be like, okay, this doesn't fit for us because it's affecting me, which is affecting this person that didn't ask to be here. And I also think that having a child puts you back into those ages as you raise your child. You start to reflect on those times. It's just inevitable. And I think that, I had a really traumatic relationship with my daughter's dad. And I was like, it started to play out in a way that made me feel like it was resembling my parents' relationship. And that brought back a lot of like trauma, like childhood trauma. And it made like arguing in front of her and like all the arguments that I experienced. And that came up. And I realized when it was coming up, when I was like exiting that relationship, because I didn't want to give her the same experience I had as a child, I realized how much I had blacked a lot of that out. I'm like a master number. I can forget some shit quickly if it hurts me. I'm a Cancer. I'm super sensitive. So I think my body just will shut some shit out. So I think that relationship started to make me realize, I'm not going to put her in this situation. I'm not going to put myself in this situation. And it made me start to think of where I was at that age. I think that was mostly when I realized how much I was able to suppress, because I started to think of like when I was 5, when I was 6, because I'm seeing my child hit these marks. And I had some like pretty traumatic things happen to me as a child in my childhood. And it started to come up when my daughter started to hit those ages. And then I had to kind of confront those times and those situations and sit with how that has affected me. Whereas before I was totally oblivious.
How is sitting with it look like? Like, what does it look like?
I guess just acknowledging it, thinking about it. When I was, I think just mostly acknowledging it, because there's a lot of shit in my life I've forgotten. And I know like people probably listening, you may not realize it, but your body, especially as like a child or a young adult, your body can literally remove memories in order for you to be able to cope. And I always tell this story as like I was in high school. And I was in Philly with driving by my grandmother's old house. And my dad was like, "Oh, you remember your grandma used to live there?" And I looked over and suddenly I remembered this memory that I had never remembered. I was like 16, and it was like a boy who was a little bit older than me had touched my vagina. It wasn't I don't feel like it's a traumatic experience for me, but it shocked me the way that I had totally forgotten the experience until that very moment. And he was like, "Remember that house?" And then it dawned on me how easily I'm able to suppress. So I think there's been other things in my life that have kind of come up that were triggered by something that made me remember memories, which made me have to address them, which made me have to dig through them, and I think become more comfortable with what that looks like. Like I think I was dating somebody, and he like screamed at me or yelled at me or did something, and I don't know what made me do this, but I had to go inside myself, and I was like, why is this affecting me so bad? What is this making, what does this feel familiar? And something made me go into visualize the house that I grew up in and find myself in the house when I was like a young girl. And I spoke to myself saying, it's okay. Like people can leave you. And I never had done anything like that before. And I don't really know what triggered me to do that in that time, but that was my first encounter with doing inner child work.
Yeah.
That acknowledging myself at that age. And I think it's a part of just being self-aware, being able to do that and not throwing out that, rejecting that prompt, and I think people forget to do that type of shit. But, I think motherhood has been a trigger to deal with a lot of shit that I had been avoiding prior.
Well, there's two things about this, and hopefully I remember the second one because we've been smoking a lot. The first one is, it's so interesting that you say that in that moment that you went back into your inner child and, you sat with yourself or whatever the case may be. Because when I was with my therapist and we had a conversation about who I'm, it started off with my parents, who I was when I was younger and how it looks when I finally sat with my inner child. And for me, I feel like when I thought about this image of me sitting with my inner child, I couldn't picture anything. It was just a blank space, and I was just sitting there, and it was a representation of how lonely I felt as a kid, and how not necessarily like I had like family and friends around, but I never had anyone that I felt, as far as like my parents or who was close to me, that was like listening to me, to take in what I was feeling at the time. So that I never really felt like a home. Like, you know, you go home, but I never felt like a home. So I never felt, I can never imagine a house. So I was just sitting there in this blank space with myself. And even at that time, because I blacked out so many memories, I didn't know what to say to myself. Like, I couldn't recant a certain memory to say, hey, this is going to be okay, or that's what's going to work out. All I could do at that time was literally sit with myself as a child, so I just didn't feel alone.
But that's still powerful. You know, I think people don't even take the time to visualize what they look like or how they felt. But I think until you feel feelings that jerk you back into those same feelings that may feel similar to when you're 5 or 6 or whatever, that you can acknowledge them. And a lot of people can't, you know, so I think that is a big deal. And that's not like something I've done all the time, but I realized how important it was when I did it, you know, and it did. It comforted me. It comforted me presently. Yeah, comforting myself then, but it was just like like not life changing, but it was a very memorable visualization, because I just don't know what caused me to do that. What made you do that? Like, what made you think I need to go sit with myself at this point?
Is when I had the realization that I couldn't remember things. And so my whole thing about like therapy, specifically like talk therapy and things like that, was I know myself, or I know the traumatic things that's gotten me to this place of like my personality. So I don't really need to talk about it, because I'm going to talk about it, and I'm also going to tell you the answers. I'm not looking for any answers. And when I started therapy, great therapist that my therapist is, it was just a question that he's asking made me realize that I don't have a childhood memory unless it's connected to a traumatic situation. So now, realizing that, I was like, hold on, let me try and remember myself as a child. Let me try and talk to myself as a child. And then within doing that, it's like I can remember up till like my teenage years. And then before that, it's just like a black, blank, dark spot.
I also think that, everybody, like people, you have to be careful too. Not careful, but I think I have done this, and I think you've done this too, is like, I just did it even when I was talking before, is like, you can have a traumatic experience, but because you've swept it over, you don't feel like it's that traumatic. And so it's like, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Or you may not even identify it as being a traumatic situation, because you've justified it in throughout the years. Like, this
is just life.
This is life.
This is what happens.
It wasn't that big of a deal. And I think a part of like for a lot of people of color, it's just like, there's so much other shit to be worried about. Is that like your mom fucking being a bitch from 6 to 8 isn't like the priority or shit like that. It's just like, but I think that acknowledging that certain situations and circumstances are not normal is a big deal. And a lot of people are not able to do that. You know, I've done it to myself for a long time. Like, it was pretty traumatic, but I don't feel like it was traumatic. It's because I've literally trained my body and my nervous system to be like, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. And I've seen how that has been like a disservice as I've gotten older, you know, like not being able to listen to myself, not being able to decipher whether something feels bad or good. You know what I mean? It's just like, it just is. It's not that big of a deal. But sometimes shit is a big deal. And sometimes it's okay to be like, I'm cool, or I'm walking away. But like, it's so easy for me to just be like, yeah. I'm not in super distress, so it's fine.
Isn't that crazy how we apply that to our adulthood too? When there's certain things that's happened, it's like, all right, well, this person or this friend did this to me. It's like, it's not that deep. Or even a family member that did this to me, but they've been doing it for so long. Oh, that's just how my dad is, how my mom is. Like, you just brush it away. And then sometimes it takes somebody that like really loves you and really cares about you to say, no, that's not okay.
That's not normal.
It's not normal.
No, for sure. I think that's a big thing. I had an older cousin like kind of like molest me for like pretty like a few years, but we're not like far in age. Mm-hmm. So when I remembered this as an adult, I felt like it was like what kids do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until she was having like because we're still close, a very like traumatic experience where she was like, I'm sorry. Her apologizing to me made me have to acknowledge that it was actually not okay. But it was really difficult for me to acknowledge that because I had suppressed it and because I had brushed it off as just like not that big of a deal. But that her apologizing and acknowledging it, along with me being a parent, and seeing my child at certain ages where like these things were happening to me at that age made me realize like, okay, there might be some shit there I need to like dig into. Like I could think it's not affecting me deeply. However, if there are times in my life that I don't feel like I can speak up for myself, where I feel like I can, like I have a voice, then I realize that those times as an adult were directly related to the times as a child where I didn't feel like I was able to do that. So I think people like forget to like follow the trail all the way back to the root of the issue. Mm-hmm.
It's pretty deep.
I know. You know, you and I are both very strange people where we laugh at things that are not funny.
But my mom used to beat me. It's traumatic.
I know. Oh my God. Remember that time you had that traumatic Christmas story, and then I was laughing and I was like, I'm not laughing. Yeah. I'm not really laughing, but I am.
Mm-hmm. Let me tell this Christmas story so that people would know what you were laughing at me about. So basically, I had to be a preteen at this time.
This is not funny.
But you laughed.
I did.
So I had to be a preteen. It was Christmas, and it just so happened. My dad's side of the family is huge, right? I have a lot of cousins. So it just so happened that a lot of the family happened to be in Brooklyn at the time, and we're at my dad's house opening Christmas gifts. Now, if you don't know, my dad was married when he impregnated my mom, and then my little brother was born right after me with the married woman, right? So she didn't really take too much to me. So this one specific Christmas, this woman, and I know for a fact that she was behind this. She got my little brother so many gifts.
Of course.
New piano, her son, of course, new piano, cool clothes. I think he got a remote control car. And like, you know, in the 90s, 2000s, a remote control car is a big thing. Right? So he's opening all these gifts, and the family's around him like oohing and eyeing, right? And I got one gift. And I took my one gift to the corner because everybody was spotlight was on my little brother. I took my one gift to the corner, opened it by myself. And it was a green turtleneck.
I thought it was black.
No, it was green. It was green like this. It wasn't even the good green. It was like sewer green, right? So I had a green turtleneck. And I opened that shit and I held it in my hand, right? With both hands. I still remember this moment. I'm holding the sleeves with both my hands, looking at the turtleneck. And one strong tear just drops right out of my eye. And I was just like, I could not believe that on Christmas, in front of everybody, even though it's not in front of everybody, because I opened it in the corner by myself because I was so sad, that all I got was this green turtleneck. And then my uncle came over to me and he saw me like crying. I just looked up at him. You know, dogs look up at you with that sad eyes. Had one strong tear going down my chin. I just look up at him. And he was like, you don't like your gift? He was like, you don't like your gift? And I just shake my head like, mm-hmm. He was like, do you want to go home? And I was like, mm-hmm. And I just left, right? Just left. I don't remember really saying bye to anybody. I just left and went home. And then a few years after, my cousins told me that they were told that I wanted to go home and spend time with my mom. Not that I got one ass fucking gift.
Well, of course.
And ever since then, I didn't wear a turtleneck until I was probably...
last year.
30. My 30th birthday, I wore a turtleneck.
And then I saw him on the Instagram with a turtleneck, and I called him. I was like, I thought you didn't like turtlenecks because of that thing that happened. You know that thing. And I was like laughing. I was like, I'm not really laughing at your pain. I don't know why I'm laughing.
But it's crazy how we find ways to like cope with these things, either whether it's laughter or forgetting. I feel like Black people do a lot of laughing with their traumatic experiences.
I mean, shit. Sometimes you gotta laugh and so you don't cry. Shit. I think that's true, but it can do you a disservice when it's time to heal from that shit. And I think a lot of the problem in the Black community and a lot of communities is that people are not taking the time to address those wounds and heal, and they're not, and then it's just like an open wound that festers and it spreads like a cancer, and then you're just an unhappy, toxic ass person, and you don't even fucking know why.
Exactly, that's laughing at traumatic shit when you really should be seeing a therapist.
Right.
So the second thing was, excuse me, how amazing having children is and how they can help you access the child within you. So with our daughter right now, and one specific memory that we had, because I've been like trying to.
You're so cute, our daughter.
I know. She's so adorable. I can't wait to see her. I finally felt dad guilt. So in me and Milah's parenting, anytime that she's like dropped off, I'm always like, yes.
It was like, calm down.
More time for us. But I still do love her with all my heart. But we had this moment where we were eating dinner, and for me, like a big thing about my childhood was like watching movies and watching TV, because I was like so poor that I never got to really experience life, and I got to see the world through television. So just one thing that we did was have a family dinner, and the one thing I always wanted since I was a kid was like nightly family dinners where we could sit and like talk about our day. And as I'm sitting there in this moment, I'm like, wow, I've always wanted this ever since I was a kid, to have like a family dinner and sit with my parents. And now that I'm able to like provide this for our daughter, it's making me feel like whole, and it's making like my inner child happy. And when I can have these moments, I tend to reflect on this moment of me and my inner child sitting in this like white room, and that makes us happy. And I do remember sitting there and saying like, wow, I love this moment that we could sit as a family, eat dinner, and we also cook the dinner for our daughter. And you going, do you want to cry? And then she's going, it's okay if you want to cry. You should cry. But in this moment, I didn't cry, but I did step away, and I started to think like, wow, I am growing and nurturing my inner child by growing and nurturing our daughter. And within this moment, I'm able to apply a happy memory to this time when I was a kid. And I may not have a happy memory of like having everyday like family dinners with like both my parents, but I'm able to replace or apply a happy memory now in my adulthood. And that's my way of like speaking to my inner child currently.
Yeah, for sure. I think having a kid, you get to do all the shit you probably like. You get to redo all the kid shit that you wouldn't have an excuse to do.
Yeah.
Which is fun. And also, yeah, even for me, I think, even growing up, like I said, my parents are crazy, but we didn't have like nightly dinners sitting down at the table. We ate together, but like spread out in the house. And I would go to like my white friend's house, and every night, like the family is sitting at the table and asking, how are you? I'm like, why the fuck are we not doing it in my house?
Right.
And same, you see it on TV. So it is nice to, it's just nice to have your own family. And then you get to make the rules and do it yourself. And even in that is like, I parent much different than my parents did. I mean, in some ways, that's another thing I'm realizing, that in some ways there's a lot of deprogramming that has to happen, because even if you're like, I'm going to be nothing like my parents, you don't know any other way. Yeah. I've never been a mom before. I'm only a fucking 7, almost 8-year-old mom, and I've never been a parent. So a lot of the things that I do are inevitably pulled from my childhood. And like, it's cool that I can redo shit, but also there's so many times where I'm checking myself because I'm functioning in a way that is the only way that I know, even though I'm like, this is not really my style and this is not what I want to do, you know. And sometimes I'm like, I see it coming out, and it's, you know, it requires me to check myself. And like the thing with kids is like, they're so joyful, so fucking happy. They have no stress. They don't have to go to work. They don't have to pay any fucking bills. Like nothing is bothering them. They have so much fucking energy. And I find myself bringing my adult worldly stress to the house and to her world. And it's like, that's not really fair, because she knows nothing of that, you know, and just separating when I'm frustrated out of shit that has nothing to do with anything, and then deading it so that I can like be present with her and just be like more like her. Like, she's doing cartwheels, who gives a fuck, you know what I mean? And like sometimes you gotta do a fucking cartwheel. So I think same for me is like being a parent has healed parts of me in a lot of ways.
I was speaking to some friends, and I was telling them how, isn't it crazy how present kids are? Like, we are bound to our history and our memories, the ones that we can actually remember. And in these moments, with children, if they feel a way, or you do something nice for them, they love you, right? If you don't do something that they want, then they take away like all the love.
Like, fuck you.
Right. And for us, we have memories of pain when love is taken away. Right. But for kids, they don't have those memories. So they are very present and in the moment, because they're not trapped by history, memories, and trauma.
They're not tainted by like being pained over and over and over again. They haven't lost trust. They haven't been like violated in ways that they can't let go of yet. Exactly.
So when I see this in children, it's like, wow, you are very present, because it's about what you want right now, because you don't necessarily have a track record of pain, trauma, or even a track record of happiness to know where to gauge this. And I took that from my daughter and seeing how she acted to think to myself that maybe I need to be present without being trapped by my past or worried about where I'm going to be in my future. And in that moment of like, even when we sat down and had family dinner, I can be present right now without feeling like, oh, I had a bad family dinner before, so I can't really enjoy this family dinner right now because I'm thinking about these bad memories where I didn't have my dad at the dinner table. Mm-hmm. But now I can switch that around and, I guess, copy and paste and stitch together my memories.
Well, you could recreate. You could recreate what you wanted and like create that environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now that I can like recreate this environment, I can be present with this happy moment instead of being present with this moment in the past.
Just void of a moment.
Or the void of a moment because I've forgotten like these memories. Yeah. So I was saying that it's amazing how you can be a child like multiple times during your life. When you first are a child, and then when you grow up and you're reliving or relearning these moments as a kid, and trying to heal from them, and maybe even a third time if you have a child, and then you have to like put yourself in the mindset of a child to raise them also.
Well, I think you realize, if you're aware enough, I've realized that like some shit is just not that serious. Mm-hmm. If you think about yourself as a child, you're just like flowing, life is just happening, and obviously because there's less responsibilities, but you're just in joy, and just excited about shit, and it's odd that as we get older, like we kind of like the joy is removed a little bit, and you become used to just being a little bit joyless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like you be around someone who's so happy and you're like, calm the fuck down with your fucking joy. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why? And one time, one time I was in Costa Rica. I'll never forget this because I'm a Cancer and I fucking don't forget shit. And we had just got to Costa Rica with the kids. And Luna saw a cat. There's so many cats and dogs. Mm-hmm. And she was like, oh my God, a cat. And I was like, I don't know why I said this. I was like, it's just a cat. Relax. And she was like, my daughter's really vocal, which I'm lucky because she's like, I'm excited. God, Mom. And I was like, whoa, I'm a bitch. I was like, whoa, I am so evil. It was like 2 years ago. I just can't let it go. But it made me realize, like, there were times just like even being around my own parents and my own mother, and I was like, God, she's a bitch. Like, what the fuck is your problem, And like putting it in perspective, not understanding being a child, all the stress and who knows what the fuck she was worried about. But like being an adult and being able to put myself in my child's shoes and then really realize when I'm just stealing joy for no fucking reason. Yeah. It reminds me to like relax, you know, like some shit's not that serious. And like there's a lot of shit to stress about, but there's a lot of shit to be enjoy about. And kids generally are just happy and present in whatever's happening right now.
Such optimistic little people.
And it's like, there's really no reason to be anything otherwise. And I don't want to like continue to get old and get further away from that. In fact, I want to get closer to being more youthful and more like childlike and playful, you know, and like you help me with that because you're so fucking silly, but
I'm a whole child myself.
You are. But you know what I mean? That's just like, yeah, that's another part of parenthood that I hope other parents are also identifying, you know, like some shit's just not that serious.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no need to dim your child's light because bills are due and shit, you know?
Yeah. I think it's much better when you can raise a child when you are fully 100% yourself. And when you get to a point where you have a child and you don't necessarily feel like you fulfilled and you are yourself or you've healed from all of these things, children are very helpful. If you are intentional with healing yourself, children are very helpful with healing whoever you were pre-child, in my opinion. So that's been very helpful for me.
Well, children are pure and they're honestly like much closer to the source. Like Luna is super, super intuitive. She like one thing I remember as a child is like my parents doing shit and I'm being so aware and then they would just not address it. And it irritated me. Like I felt like people were insulting my intelligence. Yeah. And so I really try hard not to do that to her, you know, like even with you when like the other night you had an attitude and she was like, "What's wrong with you? You seem sad." And I was like,
mind your business.
No, I was like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with him. Ask him. And you're like, I'm fine. I'm like, you're lying. But she knows, you know, and it's like, I make it a point not to like take that away. You know, I'm always honest. If I'm sad, if I'm crying, she's like, you seem sad. I'm like, I am. You know what I mean? I think parents forget that kids be knowing and it's our responsibility to kind of, you know, be honest about that type of shit.
Yeah. Has she helped you with like recanting these memories or like remembering like who you are without even like really noticing it? And not only remembering who you are, but helping you to fulfill being a better yourself?
For sure. I mean, I think I saw my mom kind of lose herself in her relationship with my dad. And I never really respected that growing up. I never understood it. I felt like she was obsessed. And I was like, I'm never going to be like that. And with my child, I think she has made me really, 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 she's made me like, I am going to be completely myself so that she understands what it looks like to see a woman live as exactly who she is. I saw my mom like not be herself and she didn't even really know who the fuck she was because she didn't take the time to do that. But I really want her to like, I'm always like, let's dance, let's do this. It doesn't matter who's watching, who gives a fuck. You know what I mean? I instill that a lot because I think in life, you know, everybody else's opinion is always going to be like loud. And I think the most important thing is teaching your child to be, just like self-aware and care more about their own feelings and what that looks like and like rely on their intuition. And in order for me to do that, I have to live that way.
Yeah.
So I think she has made me live in my truth much, much deeper than I ever did before. Like even in ending the relationship with her dad, like I was like, you're never going to see me this version of myself. Like I couldn't live with the thought that I would raise a child in an environment where I didn't even feel free and full. And that was like really what pushed me to get out of that relationship. I was like, I don't want to do that to you. I don't even want you to see me dimmed or like half myself or a little bit depressed. Yeah. So I always am trying to be the best version of myself, so that she is like is aware of who I am and what that looks like. Why are you laughing?
Because you know we laugh at weird things. But no, that is beautifully said, and I'm happy that she's able to help you do that because I know that I know who my dad is, but I don't necessarily know who my mom is. And that's because my dad is who he is because my mom, he's selfish in the sense of this is what he wants, so he's going to do what he wants when he's around my mom. He never really gave much leeway because my mom wasn't his primary like concern. So anytime I see my dad, he's being himself, while my mom is catering to my dad. So I know who my dad is, but I have no idea really who my mom is.
I feel like a lot of women do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's the huge disservice that like women have in general, just putting all their fucking eggs into a relationship. Because I saw my mom do that, and my dad seemed to be doing just fucking fine.
Yeah.
But my mom struggled, and because of that, like I was like, I'm a Cancer. I'm a hopeless romantic, but also I was like, I'm not gonna be like, I'm not gonna care about someone this much. This is crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it was like confusing in ways. But I think a lot of women lose themselves in relationships and in parenthood because you think that this is the epitome of your fucking existence. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's not, you know, like you have to establish who you are. I think it's so important to know who you are before relationships or to find it in the relationship and before parenthood, because society makes you feel that as a mom, if your identity is not your child, you're not a good mom. Mm-hmm. And I think like that's half the reason like we started Good Moms, you know, because that's not it. And that's really not the way to serve yourself. And that's how you give your child a half-assed version of you, a watered down version. But I think that figuring out who you are as a woman, especially, is super fucking important. So you don't go into relationships losing yourself and letting a man or a partner tell you who you're supposed to be, and then listening, and then growing resentment for being subservient. Is that right? In ways, and then being resentful later that you've done, like you've shrunken yourself because, oh, you're not supposed to wear that, or you're supposed to act like this, or you're supposed to be home with your kid, or you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to clean and cook, you know, like whatever the fuck the things are that you're supposed to do. If you don't evaluate prior to being in a relationship, you will start to try and like trim yourself and make yourself someone that is desirable for that person without first being desirable to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a bar. So I said that to say that yes, and it's also very important because you want to emulate what your child should be seeing. So you want to be yourself. You want your child to know exactly who you are. What happened? What? Is it shirt?
Yeah.
Does it look weird to you?
No, I feel like I can see my nipple.
Oh, can you? No, you can't. It's blurred out. It's a good nipple anyway. Okay. Yeah. But it's important so that kids can see love, can see exactly who you are, and also strengthens them because when they get to making like decisions, they already see exactly what love looks like or being yourself looks like, so they can make better decisions for themselves when they are in a said situation because they've had examples from parents.
Well, I think people rely so much on protecting their children and keeping them away from things, and obviously that's our job. Yeah, mm-hmm. But I think that giving your child like problem solving skills, giving your child the opportunity to see you problem solve, to see you sad, to see you upset, and then deal with those things is ideally the most like effective lesson. You know, like even being in a relationship, you know, my daughter see me have breakups, and then I'm like, yeah, it's over. And I've had a hard time letting go of things because I saw my mom cling to shit, and even adopt those feelings of wanting to cling to people and things because I've seen her do it. But for her, my kid, I'm like, no, some people are not meant to stay. Yeah. And those are lessons that I wish I got earlier, you know, and even just you being in the house now and just like showing her examples of love. Like, this is what it looks like when I'm in love. This is what it looks like when you're in a healthy relationship and someone's helping you and supporting you and not shying away from that, you know? And, I think instead of always trying to protect, inevitably we're going to be faced with conflict, and just teaching your child to problem solve, but also rely on their intuition. People are so afraid of things happening, and things are going to happen. But if your kid is equipped enough to listen to themselves, they're like, oh, I'm out. Oh, I don't like this. This feels weird. Oh, like you're playing. Like, you know what I mean? Like that is the most important thing. It's being able to teach your child self-awareness and the ability to rely on their sense of what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah. I think it's also beautiful because I am getting to a point where I'm myself, but I'm able to be myself as I am now, but also refill my cup of being a child. So now when as I'm healing myself, I'm healing my inner child and healing who I am before I was a parent. I can be a better parent now, a better person now, boyfriend, husband, everything, because my decision making under a healed inner child is going to be much better than if I never did the healing at all. Because even though I am myself and I love myself and all these things, I do find that I second guess things, or I get a little bit more impatient, and it's directly connected to when I was younger and I maybe didn't have people be patient with me. And it's so funny that the more you try to avoid being like a parent, the more you end up being like them and traumatizing your kids. And I personally feel that instead of avoiding who your parents were, acknowledging and accepting that they were that is a much better angle to go about avoiding putting your traumas on to your child.
Yeah. Okay, so I've realized, like, being around my friends' kids, when they are like really needy, it was really annoying to me. It really irritated me. And it took me a long time to be like, bitch, why the fuck are you letting a child bother you like this? And it dawned on me as like, needy children irk me because I didn't have parents that were super like, I didn't get babied a lot, and it was more like figure it out or like shut the fuck up. And so like when I'm around kids like that, or like kids being babied, it really, really triggers me. And I realize it's because it's what I didn't receive as a child, but it took me a long time to realize that.
Yeah.
And I think it was important for me to realize that because it was something that I didn't acknowledge. Has there been anything that, like, being around a child, living with a child right now, that you were like, realize that maybe irritated you because it's something that was void in your childhood?
Yeah, it's like when Luna doesn't get what she wants and she's like, I don't like you, or I don't love you, or I don't like what you're around, or you're not invited to my birthday, like different little shit like that, which that drove me up the wall. But anyway.
And I'm like, yo, she's 7.
Exactly, right?
It's okay if you're not invited to her birthday party. You'll be there, okay?
But when I was younger, I used to get beat a lot, but I would get my ass torn up for like the smallest things. And it wasn't just my mom. It was my mom, my aunt, my dad. Like, I had this coming from a Caribbean background, it's just like beatings is just like the way to go. So I started to realize that my punishments didn't match like the crime
of a child, right?
Yeah, as when I was a child. So now when I'm older, when I'm like, the whole day you could be nice to a child, give them exactly what they want, and as soon as you ask them to do one thing, like it's a tantrum, they don't love you anymore and all these things. And so when she does that, or when she has done that, it was just like, but I got you ice cream today. I picked you up from school. We've been laughing. I got you ice cream. What do you mean you don't love me in this moment because you have to go to bed at 9:00? And that shit would irk the fuck out of me.
I know. I can tell. I can tell. I was like, he doesn't know. He has not been here very long. He doesn't get it.
But it's because when I was a kid, like, let's say, I didn't pass a spelling test. Or, I was talking in class today, right? And I got in a little bit of trouble. Why am I getting beat like I took a pot of hot oil and threw it around the kitchen? Like, I don't understand. Like, it just doesn't match up. So whenever I feel like I get a punishment that doesn't match like the energy I put out, it gets very irritating, and my patience like drops to zero.
Well, I can definitely see where it's crazy that I can even see how you're parented sometimes by your reaction to things. Mm-hmm. And I know you're from your Caribbean back. Like, I know I didn't come from a very strict household. Mm-hmm. But I can tell that you have, just by how you implement things. And it's not like in a bad way, but I'm like, this is Jamaican.
Lotion that ass your body.
Did you shower? Let me check the soap. I'm like, I've never checked the soap. I've never thought about that. And you're like, the bar is dry.
The bar is dry.
I'm like, this is somebody's Jamaican ass auntie in the house. Let me see your ankles. I'm like, child. So it's interesting, and I think, when you have kids with somebody in general, things will come up where you're like, oh, you were parented this way, and I was parented this way. And so you see it, but I see that. And, and it's, we're both a work in progress, because I'm not the fucking gentle parent, fucking princess or no shit like that. But, I think I'm grateful that at least we are both aware that we are trying to build an environment of gentle parenting, even though it takes work, because I'm not that gentle. But it's interesting to see your parenting style come out.
Yeah. And then I feel like I just got dropped into parenting. So
no, you chose it.
Well, I was mentally prepared. And I was
like, are you sure you want to do this? This is a lot. This is intense. Are you sure you want to come here? Because are you okay? You want to leave yet?
Yeah, but I dropped in as like the auntie dad perfectly. And I'm happy. And you just never know, like, when these blessings are going to come into your life, so that it's what you want. These blessings drop into your life, and then when you receive like all the good things, or the healing, or you're wearing all these and everything like that, it's like, wow, this is exactly what I needed. And not a day in my life would I ever have thought to say, wow, a daughter is exactly, or a child is exactly what I need at this moment. And to have it and to heal from it, it feels special.
I think that healthy relationships are incredibly healing if you allow them to be. Mm-hmm. And I think we don't give it enough credit. I mean, honestly, like, of course, I was single momming my ass off before you came, and I was capable on it, and it worked, and I could do it and all those things. But, even you being here the last 6 months has shown me, like, I'm a better mom because I have help. I'm a better mom because I have support. I'm a better mom because I have someone else, like a healthy relationship. And I really do see how it's benefited her, and I see how she's enjoying it. I see how she enjoys having dinners and, playing with you and doing homework with you and like
dance parties.
And she really enjoys seeing her mom happy, like she's said things to me like, you and Orlando don't really argue. You guys argue nice. And I'm like, wow, you're very smart. But that, you being here has helped me tremendously in a lot of ways. And I think people there's always a saying is like, you need to be healed before you get in a relationship. And that is true in ways. You should be working on yourself always, but in the right relationship, you will also find healing. And so I'm happy that you've also found healing here with Luna and I.
I'm happy.
Even if she uninvited you to her birthday party 3 times this week.
Go read a book. Well, guess who's not invited now?
You're off the list, nigga. Thought you were in control of cutting the cake. It's done.
I also want to tell you that in life pre-parenting and life post-parenting has really been 100% different experiences. And it's really crazy, but all the things that I've had, like, before becoming a parent, and all the vices I've had, all the things I've put in place to like help me heal or get through a depression or just be a better person, I would have never thought that a daughter would have been what would have healed me the most. And now that I have one, and I also have a partner who's intentional about helping me heal, it's been a beautiful process. Family, therapy, and my own like mental state of like being open to it has been beautiful, and it's even more touching to me because I didn't see it coming. And you know me, I'm the person, I'm the know-it-all. So it's like I know how to better myself.
Oh, I know. I'm aware.
And then to come into this dynamic and not only have a supportive partner but a supportive child, even though she knows it or not, it's been wonderful. And I wanted to tell you thank you and that I love you.
I love you too. Thank you. It's a big ask to come in and be like, you want to live with us? And my 7-year-old, and she's might be hate you tomorrow and love you the next day. I've been like, you can't love someone like you love your child. It just like the love you have for a child that comes from you is like indescribable. Like, so to ask someone to come in and have the patience and love for a child that's not like biologically theirs, I understand what a huge ask that is. And so I thank you and I appreciate you for just jumping all the way in, diving all the way deep without hesitation.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing?
It is amazing. And sometimes I have to be like, are you sure? You sure? Are you sure you want? Because, I think a lot of single moms fear bringing around people they date to their children. B, like, just like saying things are long term in case people up and disappear and shit doesn't work out. There's a huge like dark cloud around, especially moms and men. Like there's always something like, don't leave him around your baby. Like because there's a lot of traumatic people have traumatic experiences from their moms, boyfriends, and having a lot of boyfriends and shit. But there's something really to be said about the dads or the moms, the step parents that come in and really parent kids that aren't biologically theirs like their own. It is not an easy ask, and it's like, that's hats off to you, brother.
Thank you. It's so crazy that when I first met you in human, one of the things I told you was I don't really do moms.
And I was like,
I'm never gonna probably live that down.
I was like, that's fine. I don't want you. Nobody over here wants you. I was like, cool. We don't want you either. Fucking crop top ass nigga.
It was beautiful though, because my who I would consider like my father figure and like my mentor and everything like that. He is a father to a son that's not like biologically his. So to see that love go out to a child that's not birthed by you is beautiful, and to not only to see it but to know that it's possible was very helpful to me. So even though I don't have examples from my mom and dad, I do have like a mother figure and a father figure that I look to and I look up to. And they, even though they came to me like later in my life, they really showed me that this is how you can be a parent. This is how you're supposed to feel as a child with parents. And even though, and they raised me through my 20s, but they helped me feel like a child, the child that I wanted to feel like when I was a kid. And so to have like healthy and happy examples, even though they're not biologically yours, is the most beautiful fucking thing in the world. And from the child or the youth perspective, it's a beautiful feeling. And knowing I've had like all these experiences and traumas, I want to make sure that our daughter has a very, very healthy experience. And that's the other part of like being aware, is not only to be self-aware for yourself, but to be aware for
the well-being of the child.
Yeah, exactly. And have intent with how you're raising this child, not just like giving them unnecessary beatings or not being like your full content and happy self around them. So so that you can raise a healthy, happy, problem-solving child. I love you.
I love you too.
Is there anybody that you would want to, send some love to?
My mom. Send some love to my mother, who birthed me and who made mistakes, but is, growing still. And, just I encourage everyone to have the ability to see their parents as children too, because they're evolving. And I realize, we are in ways very evolved, and sometimes more emotionally evolved than our parents. And sometimes just giving them the grace is difficult. So, I encourage that, and releasing and let going of past pains, and just acknowledging that a lot of times those parents had shit going on that they didn't have the wherewithal to pinpoint and heal.
Yeah.
And that healing ourselves heals generations, 7 generations behind you and 7 generations ahead of you.
Yeah. I want to take this time to offer you a venting session so that you can, if there's anything on your chest, what's on your chest that came up this moment in this episode, that you can go ahead and vent.
I don't know if I so much need to vent, more so just release fear. Mm-hmm. Release fear of everything. Release fear of like success, failure, death, just living presently is something that is sometimes difficult for me to do. I'm constantly like thinking about this or that, the future, this, that. And, life's short. So I just want to be happy and present and in love and flow with the people that I love. I have a beautiful life and a beautiful relationship, and and I'm just really grateful for that. And I just don't want to be dwelling on the fear often.
Can you let everybody know where they can find you and everything that you're a part of?
So many things. I'm Jamila. You can find me on my podcast at GoodMoms_Bad Choices on Instagram, and Good Moms Bad Choices on all platforms. You can find me personally at Milah, MILAH_Mapp with 2 P's on Instagram. You can come to my wellness retreat called the Good Vibe Retreat. You can find on Instagram. It's for women. It's for healing. It's for healing your inner child. It's for release. It's for renewing. It's for friendship. And also, I'll be publishing a book next year on Mother's Day.
Nice.
That you can find, called A Good Mom's Guide to Making Bad Choices.
Perfect. And this is the Ménage À Mind podcast. You can find Ménage À Mind on every social platform at Ménage À Mind. You can follow me at WH_Orlando Roye everywhere. This is a beautiful podcast that I hope
you should spell Ménage, because nobody knows how to spell that.
Nobody knows how to spell Ménage? Okay. Ménage. MENAGEAMIND. So if you're listening to us right now, you found Ménage À Mind on everywhere you can listen to podcasts. If you're watching us on YouTube, that's Ménage À Mind on YouTube. But I want to thank y'all for listening. This is Ménage À Mind, where the journey of therapy, healing, and wellness meets intimacy, affection, and sensuality.
Thank you.
I've been practicing that. I didn't think it was going to come up that smooth.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, my love.
I love you.
Perfect.
Bye. On the next episode of Ménage À Mind.
Mr. Sex God, how do men receive you?
All right, well, now we can have like a male, female threesome.
So which part of the sexual act was the most healing?